Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Forgin' Friday. And, folks, today we're looking at, I think the last deck here that I haven't shown you folks yet. That's not a commander deck. I haven't gone over the commander decks yet. But, yeah, today we're looking at, Oops All Spells. And, I have to admit, this is probably one of my most powerful decks. It's a deck that can win on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. It's pretty fast because it's a combo deck. So folks, here's I guess the best way to go over this is just to go over the combo first. So let's start at the start of it here, and we're gonna go over. We have 4 copies of Undercity Informer, 2 in a black for a 2/3 creature. It has pay 1 of any color, sacrifice a creature. Target player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card, then puts those cards into his or her graveyard. The one we have here is Balustrade Spy. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's 3 in a black for another 2/3. Has flying, and it has when Balustrade Spy enters the battlefield, target player reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card, then put those cards into their graveyard. So the way this deck is going to work is we don't have any lands. We have 0 lands. And so what's going to happen is you're going to play Undercity Informer. Both of these essentially, you need 4 mana to get them to do what you want. You play Balustrade Spy, comes in and you target yourself with its ability, and because we don't have any lands in our deck, it mills the entire library right into the graveyard. Similar effect with Undercity Informer. Comes in, you have to pay another mana, so it goes up to 4 total, and you sacrifice the Undercity Informer. That's the creature you generally want to sack, and you target yourself with its ability, mills your entire deck into the graveyard. So you're probably wondering, oh, why would you want to do that? You've emptied your deck, you're going to lose next turn. So we run these 4 Narcomoebas. Narcomoebas, 1 in a blue for a 1/1 with flying. None of that matters. It has, when Narcomoeba is put into the graveyard from your library, you may put it onto the battlefield. So we mill our entire deck. 4 Narcomoebas go onto the battlefield. Once that happens, the other thing that happens is we into our graveyard goes Dread Return. Dread Return is 2 and 2 black for sorcery. Says return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It has flashback, sacrifice 3 creatures. So you're going to mill yourself. You're going to get those 4 Narcomoebas. If you happen to have a Balustrade Spy, you'll still have the Balustrade Spy. And you're going to sacrifice 3 of those remaining creatures. And you're going to target, in your graveyard, Thassa's Oracle. Thassa's Oracle, 2 blue for a 1/3. Once again, none of that matters. When Thassa's Oracle enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to 1 of them onto the library, and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So Thassa's Oracle will go on the battlefield, and because of Undercity Informer or Balustrade Spy, our library is then empty. Once once Thassa's Oracle comes onto the field, our devotion is at least, a devotion to blue is at least 1 because of Thassa's Oracle. It'll try to draw a card, won't find it, and we'll win the game because of it. So that's the general way that it's gonna work. So you're probably wondering, if we don't have any lands in our deck, how are we going to cast, Undercity Informer, Balustrade Spy, or anything really? So to get our mana, we run Agadeem's Awakening, and unfortunately, I tried this before, and you can't actually view the flip in Forge. I don't see any way of actually doing that in this mobile version. So Agadeem's Awakening, it has some stuff here. It's X, 3 black. It says return from your graveyard to the battlefield any number of target creature cards that each have a different converted mana cost. You could, in a pinch, use it to bring back, some Narcomoebas or something if you happen to draw some Narcomoebas. That's actually a sticking point of this deck, is if you draw the Narcomoebas, they won't be in your library, they won't go in the graveyard, you won't get them on the field. So if you happen to get them into your hand, you could, there are ways we have of discarding things, but to bring them back, or say a Thassa's Oracle, or a Balustrade Spy, or if we just need to get those 3 creatures onto the field, you could use the front side of this, but the back side of it is actually a land, and you pay. It's a pay 3 life, comes in untapped, or it comes in tapped otherwise. So we, you would have this in hand, and generally you're not going to be playing the front side of it, you're going to be playing the back side of it to get an untapped land onto the field. But in your library, in your graveyard, these are not lands, they're sorceries. So that's when Undercity Informer or Balustrade Spy sees it as it's going through your library, you'll see a sorcery, not a land. So it'll end up going to your graveyard. So we run that, we run Malakir Rebirth. Front side, once again, doesn't really matter. Back side is a tap land, a tap black land. Pelakka Predation, another tap land on the back side. I think it doesn't even show that here because we don't have the actual card looking version of it. We have the generic Forge version of it. That's maybe a downside of Forge here. I wish it would be a little better about double-faced cards. So we run those, so we're really running, what is that, 4 times 3 is 12 lands. So we run 12 lands, and then we also run 4 Dark Rituals. That's 1 black, and it's, I should say it's an instant. 1 black, and it says add 3 black to your mana pool. So we run 4 of those. We run Cabal Ritual, which is kind of a somewhat nerfed version of Dark Ritual, which is 1 and a black for an instant, says add 3 black to your mana pool. I suppose you could try to get Threshold, but you're not really looking to get... You want to play Cabal Ritual, but to get Undercity Informer or the Spy onto the field. So you won't have Threshold at that point unless you've been discarding a lot to hand size or something, which hopefully your game isn't going that long. So you'll only really get 1 extra black from playing Cabal Ritual. We also run 4 Lotus Petals. That's 1 black for an artifact that says tap and sacrifice Lotus Petal, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source, which of course, I mean, yeah, that's what that does. Then we run 4 Elvish Spirit Guides. That's 2 and 1 green, and for a 2/2. But you're not going to be playing it. Hopefully, you're going to be using its ability that says exile Elvish Spirit Guide from your hand to add 1 green. Very similar to Simian Spirit Guide, which you have 1 copy of. 2 and 1 red, exile Simian Spirit Guide from your hand, add 1 red. It's another 2/2. Once again, you're not going to be playing it, exiling it from hand. So, you have all those mana sources. We also have, we also run 4 Summoner's Pacts. And a Summoner's Pact says is an instant 1, Summoner's Pact is 0 for a green instant that says search your library for a green creature card, reveal it, put into your hand, and then shuffle your library. At the beginning of your upkeep, at the beginning of your next upkeep, pay 2 and 2 green. If you don't, you lose the game. So this is really a last-ditch effort if you're really ready to go off and play your Informer or your Spy. You can use Summoner's Pact to go grab an Elvish Spirit Guide and add that to your mana pool. So these are basically, you can think of these 4 as another 4 Elvish Spirit Guides. So you kind of have 8 Elvish Spirit Guides, and so you know, once again, this is kind of an all or nothing combo. Once you try to play it, you're gonna have an empty library, and you know, once you're ready to play your Informer or your Spy, you're not going to have another upkeep. You're either going to lose the game or win the game in your current turn. So that's why we run that's why we're not too concerned about paying that 2 and 2 green. We also, to get some mana fixing, since we have a mixture of red and green mana, we also run a Wild Cantor, which is either a red or a green, and you can sacrifice it to add 1 color of any mana to your mana pool. Since it's a green, you can actually grab it with Summoner's Pact, as well as the Elvish Spirit Guides. So you would you say you had 4 Elvish Spirit Guides, and you had your Spy or Informer in hand, and a Summoner's Pact, or you had the Wild Cantor. You could add 4 green to your mana pool, play Wild Cantor, go fetch it with the Summoner's Pact, then play it, sacrifice it, and basically convert one of those green mana into a black mana to be able to play the Spy or the Informer. We also have 4 Manamorphose. That's 1 in either a red or a green. It says add 2 mana of any combination of colors and draw a card. So a cantrip that you can use to also fix your mana. And finally, some protection we run. So we run Chancellor of the Annex. The only point, you're never going to be playing Chancellor of the Annex, hopefully, unless you're playing a really crazy game. It's 4 and 3 whites for a 5/6 that has flying, and whenever an opponent casts a spell, counter it unless that player pays 1. You really want this so that you have it in your opening hand, and it says you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, when each opponent casts his or her first spell, the game counter that spell unless that player pays 1. So it forces our opponent to pay at least 1 extra for whatever spell they're first going to cast. And like I said, this is a pretty fast deck, so hopefully you're going off turn 1 or turn 2, and your opponent still has this effect applied to them. And if they try to counter or blow up your creatures or anything, you'll have that. They'll have to pay an extra mana to be able to do that. So beyond that, we also run 4 Pact of Negation, similar to Pact of Summoner's Pact here. Pact of Negation is 0 for blue instant. This is counter target spell. At the beginning of your next upkeep, pay 3 and 2 blue. If you don't, you lose the game. Once again, we're not planning, if we're going off and we're using Pact of Negation to protect our spells, we're not planning on seeing our next upkeep. We're planning on winning right then. So that's why we run. That's why we're not worried about paying that 3 and 2 blue. We have that. We also have this is actually a recent addition I added. It's Memory's Journey. 1 and a blue for an instant. Has target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from his or her graveyard into his or her library, and has flashback 1. So this is in the case of there's a couple of cases. Say you somehow your Undercity, maybe some of your Narcomoebas have ended up in the graveyard, and you have a Memory's Journey in hand. You can Memory's Journey target the Narcomoebas, put them back into your library, so that when you go off with your Informer or Spy, they get put from the library and the graveyard, go onto the field. It can also be a case of maybe you've already played your Informer or Spy, everything's in your graveyard, and your opponent plays something to try to exile your graveyard or something. You can Memory's Journey to put a couple of cards back into your library to hopefully go off next turn or something. Try to somehow salvage in that case. In the case they do something, you don't have a Pact of Negation. We also run a Cabal Therapy. So that's 1 black for sorcery. It says name a non-land card. Target player reveals his or her hand and discards all cards with that name. Flashback, sacrifice a creature. That would be useful, say if you accidentally drew your Thassa's Oracle, or you drew your Dread Return. You could Cabal Therapy yourself to get rid of those cards and put them into your graveyard, so that when you go off with your Spy or Informer, everything's where it needs to be. No help with the Narcomoebas. If you draw a Narcomoeba, Cabal Therapy will put it into the graveyard and it will just stay there. Because the Narcomoeba specifically goes onto the field only if it goes from your library or to your battlefield. So don't bother trying to Cabal Therapy your own Narcomoeba in hand. Alright, so that was an introduction to the deck there. Let's jump into a game. And like I said, this is one of my most powerful decks. And this seems like a pretty good hand. Actually, we might be able to go off turn 1 with this. Let's keep it. We got our Informer. We got 2 Informers. We have our untapped land here. Play the land. Yes, we'll pay 3 life. We have 2 Summoning Pacts and a Cabal Ritual, so we'll Summoning Pact. Go get a Spirit Guide. Exile a Spirit Guide. 1 green. Exile this. Go get another Spirit Guide. Exile it. Another green. And now we want a Cabal Ritual. Pay a black. Pay a green. Now we're up to 4. Undercity Informer. And now we have to ask for pay 1, sacrifice itself, target me. Was it targeting me? Okay, here we go. Pay 1, sacrifice it. And everything is getting put into our graveyard. Put all these triggers on the stack. Yep. Get our Narcomoeba. And luckily there's this little feature here on Forge that lets you see in your what's in your graveyard that you can play. And play our Dread Return. This is our graveyard. Target the Thassa's Oracle, sacrifice the Narcomoebas, and we win. So there you can see how quick it is. And like I said, it's a very powerful deck, and I don't know why it's not more highly sought after. How it's not being played. I believe it's if I go into say here, yeah, this is a legacy deck. I don't know how this isn't played all the time in legacy. I guess maybe it's I'm mixing them up. Is it vintage? It's the one that's more restrictive. I thought it was vintage was the more restrictive. So yeah, I don't know why. I'm surprised. I don't know what's in this deck that prevents it from being played in vintage. But yeah, I'm surprised this isn't just running all over legacy with how powerful this deck is. So let's see. We have a Spirit Guide, a Summoner's Pact, Dark Ritual, Manamorphose. So we get 2 from these. We have ours. Yeah, so I think we can go off turn 1 with this again. Or turn 2, I don't know. Oh, and even a Lotus Petal now. I don't even know if we need that Summoner's Pact. So we'll Dark Ritual. And we'll Elvish Spirit Guide. And we'll play the Spy. Let's again target ourselves. Fills up our graveyard. Put all the Narcomoebas on the stack. Yep. Put them on the field. And our Dread Return. Thassa's Oracle, Narcomoebas, won the game. We'll play one more, and I should say we haven't run into it here, but if you happen to see, you know, the Thassa's Oracle or Cabal Ritual in hand, immediately mulligan. that's a losing hand. If you see an Narcomoeba, I would also mulligan too. Don't be afraid to mulligan with this deck. You don't need all that many cards to win with it. I think we got another one that's gonna go pretty fast, and we're on the play here, so this is gonna be over really soon. Unfortunately, we don't have the protection of we don't happen to have the Pact of Negation, so if our opponent happens to have a you know, Force of Will or something, we might be in trouble. But we'll see how it goes. Play both Lotus Petals. We'll play Dark Ritual. Okay. Pitch the Elvish Spirit Guide. And Undercity Informer. Okay. Target me. Sacrifice it. Okay. Put Narcomoebas in the hand. And let's go Dread Return. Thassa's Oracle. Target the get rid of the Narcomoebas. And we've won again. So you can see it's a very powerful deck, and I would say it's you know, I mean, you do have to play around Force of Wills, use your Pact of Negations. You don't have to worry about that sort of thing, but it's so fast and it usually wins. And unfortunately, that means that I generally don't play it very much in Forge. If I really want to get gratification of beating an AI opponent, then yeah, I'll play Oops All Spells. But otherwise, it's not all that fun to play because it's kind of an instant win deck. But and I should say, so if you're for a while I didn't have all three of the Agadeem's Awakening, and I added the other, I didn't have all four of them. I just had one in here, and I added the other three just because it's another untapped source you can use to win turn one. Yeah, I mean, you could use some of those other tapped double-sided lands and have generally the same effect. You can see I only really used the Agadeem's Awakening in the first game. The other two, we won first turn and didn't even need to use that. So yeah, I mean, it's I think the only expense of this deck, if I go back into it, the only really expensive cards, at least when I was buying it, the Agadeem's Awakening are a bit expensive, and the Lotus Petals were a bit expensive. But other than that, not a super expensive deck, and generally wins in the first couple of turns. Pretty powerful. So yeah, I'd recommend if you want to get into Legacy and win some games, build that deck. Go out there, win those games. Alright, so that was a rather quick one, but we'll call it there. And thanks for joining me on another episode of Forgin' Friday.